They don't reach out first, not because they don't care, not because you didn't matter, and definitely not because they've moved on. They stay silent because reaching out feels dangerous to them. For an avoidant, sending that one message means risking emotional exposure, and exposure feels like losing control. The moment they think about texting you, their mind floods with fear of needing you, fear of being pulled back into emotions they work so hard to shut down, fear of appearing weak. So instead of reaching out, they retreat. They tell themselves they're fine. They distract themselves. They convince themselves that silence is strength. But what they don't tell you is that they replay conversations in their head, check their phone more than they admit, and wait quietly to see if you'll be the one to break the silence. Avoidants often believe that if you truly care, you'll come to them. It's not manipulation, it's protection. They learned early on that needing someone leads to disappointment, so they built distance as armor. And here's the part most people don't realize: every day they don't reach out, the conflict inside them grows stronger. One part wants connection, the other is terrified of it. And that internal war is why they stay silent, even when missing you hurts more than the distance itself. Avoidant silence isn't empty, it's loud with internal noise. When an avoidant goes quiet, it's not calm on the inside, it's conflict. Their nervous system is wired to associate closeness with loss of freedom, pressure, or emotional overwhelm. So when feelings grow stronger, their body reacts before their logic does. Silence becomes a reflex, not a decision. It gives them space to regulate emotions they were never taught how to process. They don't withdraw because they feel nothing. They withdraw because they feel too much all at once, without a safe way to express it. The silence is their attempt to regain control, to slow down emotions that feel like they might swallow them whole. In their mind, reaching out could reopen emotional doors they barely manage to close. So they wait, hoping the intensity fades, hoping distance will quiet what closeness awakened. But here's the paradox. The more they suppress connection, the more it lingers. Thoughts loop, memories resurface. The absence becomes heavier than presence ever was. Still, silence feels safer than vulnerability, because vulnerability once taught them that depending on someone comes with a cost. So they choose distance not because it's painless, but because it's familiar. And for an avoidant, familiar pain feels safer than uncertain intimacy. They may look absent, but attention doesn't always make noise. Avoidants rarely observe openly. They observe from a distance where they feel safe. When they're watching you quietly, it shows up in subtle, almost deniable ways. Your name still triggers a pause in their thoughts. Your presence online doesn't go unnoticed even if they never react. They may check your stories without ever liking them, revisit old messages without replying, or ask mutual friends casual questions that sound indifferent but aren't. These behaviors aren't accidents, they're controlled closeness. Watching from afar allows them to feel connected without risking emotional exposure. It's their way of keeping a thread between you, thin enough to feel safe, strong enough to keep you close. What's important to understand is that this watching isn't about obsession or control. It's about reassurance. They want to know you're still there without having to step forward themselves. Silence gives them distance, observation gives them comfort. And the more they resist reaching out, the more they rely on these quiet check-ins to soothe their uncertainty. They convince themselves they're detached, but their attention tells a different story. If they were truly done, they wouldn't need to look at all. Watching quietly is the compromise they make between wanting connection and fearing it at the same time. They expect you to make the move because it feels safer when vulnerability comes from someone else. For an avoidant, initiating contact means stepping into uncertainty without armor. But when you reach out first, the emotional risk shifts away from them. It gives them proof without exposure. In their mind, if you move toward them, it confirms interest without forcing them to admit their own. This isn't laziness or ego, it's self-preservation. Many avoidants learned early that expressing needs led to disappointment, rejection, or emotional overload, so they adapted by waiting instead of asking. Letting others come to them became a way to feel chosen without risking refusal. There's also a deeper layer most people missed. They fear misreading signals. Reaching out means possibly being wrong, and being wrong feels emotionally dangerous. So they stay still, watching, hoping clarity comes from your action instead. When you initiate, it gives them permission to respond without confronting their fear of wanting you. It allows them to engage while keeping their emotional defenses intact. But this waiting creates imbalance. You feel confused, they feel relieved, and neither of you says what's actually happening. The truth is, they're not waiting because they don't care. They're waiting because caring feels like stepping onto unstable ground, and they'd rather test the ground through you than risk falling themselves. Their mixed signals aren't confusion, they're contradiction. One moment they're warm, present, almost intimate, and the next they pull back like nothing happened. That push and pull isn't random. It's their attachment system switching between desire and defense. When they move closer, it feels good, validating, even calming. But closeness quickly triggers an internal alarm that says something is about to be lost: freedom, control, or emotional safety. So they retreat. The withdrawal isn't rejection of you. It's an attempt to escape the discomfort closeness creates inside them. This is why their words and actions don't line up. They may say they need space, then subtly seek your attention. They may disappear, then resurface with just enough warmth to keep the connection alive. Mixed signals are their way of regulating emotional intensity without fully letting go or fully committing. It allows them to feel connected on their terms, in controlled doses. What makes this painful is that you're left trying to interpret inconsistency as meaning, wondering which version is real. The truth is both are. The caring version and the distant version exist at the same time. Until they learn how to tolerate emotional closeness without fear, their behavior will continue to swing between approach and avoidance. And unless you understand that pattern, their mixed signals will keep pulling you into emotional uncertainty that was never meant to be yours to solve. What looks like emotional distance is often fear wearing the mask of independence. Avoidants do form real attachment, but the moment that attachment deepens, fear steps in to overpower it. Their nervous system doesn't separate love from danger. Care feels intense, binding, and irreversible, so fear rises to shut it down before it takes control. This is why they can miss you deeply while acting unaffected. The attachment exists, but it stays hidden behind protective behaviors like silence, detachment, or sudden coldness. Real emotional connection threatens the walls they built to survive earlier experiences where closeness felt unsafe or overwhelming. So instead of leaning in, they lean away, telling themselves they don't need what they clearly feel. Fear doesn't erase attachment, it interrupts it. And the stronger the bond, the louder the fear becomes. That's why avoidants often pull back right when things start to feel meaningful. They aren't reacting to you, they're reacting to their own emotions. Love activates vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like losing control, so they suppress, minimize, or deny what's real inside them. The tragedy is that fear convinces them distance equals safety even when attachment is genuine. Until they learn that closeness doesn't require self-loss, fear will keep winning over connection, and real attachment will remain buried beneath defensive silence. They test your emotional availability because certainty feels dangerous to them. When emotions are unclear, they feel in control. But when connection becomes steady and predictable, their fear of dependence activates. So instead of asking for reassurance, they create situations that reveal it indirectly. They may pull back to see if you notice, go quiet to see if you reach out, or act emotionally neutral to measure how much effort you'll make. These tests aren't conscious games, they're protective experiments. They're trying to answer a question they're afraid to ask directly. Will you still be there if I don't try? Emotional availability tests allow them to receive confirmation without risking rejection. If you pursue, they feel wanted. If you don't, they tell themselves detachment was the right choice. This keeps them from having to openly express need. But the cost is emotional imbalance. You're left proving consistency while they stay guarded. What's important to understand is that these tests don't mean they want to leave. They mean they're unsure how safe it is to stay. They want connection without pressure, reassurance without exposure. Until they learn how to communicate needs openly, testing becomes their language. And unless you recognize it for what it is, you may mistake fear-driven behavior for a lack of care when it's actually the opposite. The mistake that pushes avoidance away isn't loving too much, it's trying to force clarity before they feel emotionally safe. When you push for answers, reassurance, or commitment while they're still regulating their fear, their nervous system hears threat, not connection. Even calm questions can feel like pressure when someone associates closeness with loss of control. They don't experience emotional intensity the way secure people do. What feels like honesty to you can feel like an emotional demand to them. So when they sense expectation, their instinct is to create distance, to breathe again. This is why repeated check-ins, emotional confrontations, or attempts to fix the relationship often backfire. They interpret it as being pulled into something they might not be able to escape. The more you chase understanding, the more they retreat into silence or detachment. It's not because your needs are wrong, it's because they haven't learned how to hold space for them. Another part of this mistake is abandoning your own boundaries to keep them close. When you overextend, it confirms their belief that closeness leads to imbalance. Avoidants move away when they feel responsible for someone else's emotional stability. The paradox is that safety, not intensity, is what allows them to move closer. Pressure pushes them away, emotional steadiness invites them back. If an avoidant is waiting for you, the first thing to understand is that patience is your ally, not passivity. They aren't testing you to hurt you, they're managing internal conflict that you can't fix for them. The best approach isn't chasing, pressuring, or trying to decode every small action. It's showing calm consistency while protecting your own emotional space. Let them see that you're present without making yourself responsible for their feelings. Reach out in small, gentle ways that signal care, not demand. Respect their distance, but maintain boundaries that honor your needs. Focus on building connection without attachment to immediate results. This creates a safe environment where they can respond without fear. Avoidant behavior is less about you and more about their relationship with closeness, so giving them room to navigate it on their terms can break the cycle of push and pull. Don't mistake silence for rejection, and don't try to fill every gap. Let the gaps exist. Sometimes what they need most is a patient presence that communicates interest without pressure, care without demand, and availability without anxiety. By holding your own calm and clarity, you invite them to meet you halfway, on terms they can manage, which is the only way real connection will survive with an avoidant.